to the January 27, 2026 Eugene Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Jason Lear and I'm chair of the Eugene Planning Commission. To begin this evening, I'd like to call on Commissioner Edwards for the city's land acknowledgements.
Thank you. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards to our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enhancing sustainable land practices. This land acknowledgement is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and to honor Native communities by inviting truth and reconciliation. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. As we consider the impacts of colonization, we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of displaced indigenous people. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as Kalapuya Ilihi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon. They continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We express our respect for the inherent political sovereignty of all federally recognized tribal nations and indigenous people who live in the state of Oregon and across the nation. Therefore, the Planning Commission recognizes that what we do today will affect the many generations who will come after us.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards, and thank you to everyone joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Today, our meeting will begin with public comment, followed by an informational work session on the urban growth strategies updates, including hearing perspectives from a community advisory panel. Thanks to our panelists for joining us tonight. Anyone wishing to join the meeting can do so by following the instructions listed on the agenda for this meeting. Planning Commission meetings can also be viewed by watching the live stream available on our website or the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21. For those who join the meeting via computer device or phone, your microphone, webcam, and phone are automatically muted when you enter the meeting as an attendee. If you wish to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting and haven't done so already, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speaker's queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the blue hand icon. And for those listening to the meeting on a phone, please press *9. Public comments an opportunity for individuals to speak to the Planning Commission on any topics except for items scheduled for public hearing or public hearing items for which the record is already closed. As a reminder, your hand must be raised to be in the queue for public comment. Is there anyone who wants to provide public comment?
We do not have anyone in the attendee list with their hand raised.
Okay. As always, feel free to contact staff if there are comments you are not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different manner. I'll now close public comment. Moving on to our next and main agenda item, I'd like to turn it over to Terry Harding to begin the staff presentation. And following the staff presentation, the commission will have the opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Lear. Let Stuart have a moment to get the presentation up on the screen. But I just want to say a hearty welcome to everyone who's joining us tonight. We have a really special meeting planned for you all. As Jason said, or Commissioner Lear said, we have invited members of our Urban Growth Strategies Community Advisory Panel and one of our consultant facilitators, MA, who is online, to join you tonight for the roundtable discussion. And we had a surprise appearance from Julie Fisher, also our other consultant facilitator is here. So this meeting will be a bit different than what you're used to. We're going to kick off the meeting with introductions and an icebreaker for everyone. And then staff are going to give you a very brief presentation about the community advisory panel and the work that they did, the topics that we covered in the meetings, and some key takeaways. And lastly, we're going to spend most of our time this evening in conversation and plan to wrap up by 7 o'clock. Chair, we can begin with introductions from the community advisory panel members, and then we'll go over to planning commissioners and lastly, please.
Okay, wonderful. Would you like to begin?
Sure. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Carl Ye. I'm as a member of the subcommittee. I guess I'll just say my day job is I'm the Dean for Student Engagement at Lake Community College. Was there anything else that you wanted?
Yeah, so we're gonna ask the
Oh.
question on the screen.
Oh, there it is. Thank you, I forgot. We actually went over this before. What motivates you to engage in city processes? I've had a previous interest, and I think what really attracted me to this was that there was a concerted effort to try to bring people from really various backgrounds, but also socioeconomic backgrounds and different interests. And I think that was really what motivated me for this particular process. But I also really care about the city, and as a person who's lived in it for more than 20 years, it was really important for me to just be involved. And so we're so grateful for that opportunity.
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
I think Eva, if you're ready, we're gonna pass it around to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eva Krukowski, she, her pronouns. I have been living in Eugene for a little over 4 years now. I'm originally from the Bay Area in California, and I have family living all over the country. I'm a citizen of Cherokee Nation and out of northeastern Oklahoma. I studied city planning and the 3 p.m. program, planning public policy and management at the University of Oregon. I did finished my undergraduate program there. And I really appreciated the challenge of planning in Eugene and just how I guess interesting some of the planning challenges are in the city of Eugene. And then just I came to see a lot of connections between like the kind of conversations I was having in the classroom and then also conversations I was having with the Native student community in the Longhouse on campus. And so making those connections between, you know, what's important in terms of connection to natural environment, and then also it's important in terms of like creating healthy communities. And so I felt really privileged to be asked to join the panel, and I'm happy to be here today. Thanks.
Thanks, Eva. Welcome. Meg.
So my name is Ming. They, he are my pronouns. I studied architecture and city and regional planning at UC Berkeley for a while, and then graduated with a registered nursing degree through a long series of stuff. I'm disabled by narcolepsy and also live like in the Bay Area. And so I have a keen interest in urban planning, and I'm also a board member of Square One.
Great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gal Sheikh. I'm a high school at South Eugene. I serve as co-chair for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council as well. One thing that motivates me is, you know, having been born and raised in Eugene, and you know, I guess this is all I've known, basically the only place I've lived in, and you know, seeing the difference in equity and accessibility between various areas of Eugene, either that be south versus west, the more industrial west compared to the more affluent south. So I think working towards breaking down those is something that I'm really passionate about and motivates me to, you know, continue working in city processes.
Thank you so much.
My name is Timothy Herrera. I use he, him, her pronouns, and I'm a cultural anthropologist and a project manager. And what motivates me to engage with city processes, as a cultural anthropologist, I understand the many dynamics and intersectional ways how people are impacted and how community gets impacted. So I saw the urban growth strategies as a really important opportunity to be able to see the intersections between health and environmental change and housing disparities and our racial history, all kind of coming together to really motivate and plan for how our communities are going to live for the next couple of decades. So,
Thanks for joining all. Commissioner Isaacson, want to continue?
Sure. Commissioner Isaacson, small business owner in the town. I've been on the planning commission for this will be my 6th year. What motivates me to get involved in planning commission just in general is how the commission has been to the community and tackling issues that really kind of shape the future of the city. It's one of the most impactful commissions I think that the city has. I've always found the staff to be incredibly helpful, especially as a new commissioner, and I think the public always engages us whenever we meet with them. And I think that we have a lot of work to do in a variety of areas. So I'm excited to be part of it.
Thank you so much. My name is Jason Lear. I'm the chair of the Eugene Planning Commission. This is my fourth year, I think, on the commission. I got involved with the commission, with other city boards. I've served for 4 or 5 years on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Advisory Committee because I come from a background working with rental property owners and in development, and became really motivated seeing the need in our community to engage really deeply in affordable housing policy and ultimately affordable housing development. Definitely want to see a community where there's less rent burden and more economic opportunity, and thought that this was a key opportunity to engage in that process and to really represent those views. I think that, you know, for largely positive reasons, the city has for decades kind of embraced the philosophy of avoiding growth, avoiding development, and avoiding creating housing opportunity. And so it's been really rewarding to be involved as there's been kind of a mindset shift. And it's a fantastic chance to learn a lot about city planning and just the way that the future of the city is getting knitted together. Mr. Beeson?
My name is Ken Beeson. Let's see, I've been on the Planning Commission about 6 years. I've lived in Eugene most of my life. I worked at Eugene Water and Electric Board for a good number of years. There's a lot of my connection to city processes. I've been involved with the city in a number of different ways over the years, and Planning Commission being the most recent. I'm interested in all things the Planning Commission works on. It's highly interesting work and engaging. I'm particularly interested in housing. It's going to happen over the last several years. A lot of what we do is focused on it. And I guess within that, I'd also say I'm particularly interested in how we, in processes like urban growth strategies and others, how we work to get engaged with people in the community who are underserved or that we don't normally communicate with. How do we communicate with them and understand their needs, understand the needs of people who are maybe most impacted by some of the policy work we do. So that's me.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Edwards.
Oh, thank you. My name is Tiffany Edwards, and I've been serving on the Planning Commission. This is my 8th year, so I think I'm the senior planning commissioner. I serve on a number of various city boards and commissions, as well as like the Lane Transit District Committee and a county committee. I really enjoy being involved. Professionally, I work for I'm a vice president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Eugene, and I head up all of the policy work for the chamber. So I have a team, and we're constantly tracking all the policy things that are happening in and around our community. And for me, I really appreciate the involvement because it gives me a tremendous sense of belonging and meaning. Because when you're in the rooms where decisions are being considered and things are happening, it really does help feel like this is home. I was new to Eugene in 2012, and so one of the first things I began to do was just get involved. So I also professionally encourage other people to get involved. So I'm a big proponent of, and I really appreciate all of you that have chosen to engage with the city and help us with this process. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Maybe we'll go to Commissioner Bailing if you're ready before Commissioner Yang.
Yes, can you hear me all right? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Diane Bailing. I've been on the Planning Commission for 4 years this May. My background was in capital planning at the University of California, San Francisco, and corporate facilities management in corporate Silicon Valley before I moved to Oregon 6 years ago. And it's in my nature to get involved. I've done that all my life. I went to Berkeley in the 60s, so I've been an activist my entire adult life. And I am on my local area neighborhood board. And I believe it was City Councilman Greg Evans who encouraged me to apply for the Planning Commission. I live in the Bethel area, and we have kind of considered ourselves to be the poor stepchildren, and there's a lot of room for improvement. So I'm happy to be on the Planning Commission, and I'm serving this year as the vice chair. You have to excuse me, I'm getting over bronchitis.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Yang?
My name is Kathleen Yang. I'm the baby on the planning commission. It's my first year. Thank you all. My background is medicine. I'm one of the GY oncologists in town. And so I'm particularly interested in the health impact that some of the decisions that we made on the commission that impact the citizens and vice versa. And I've been in Eugene for about 15 years now. I also came from the Bay Area, went to Cal too. So, I want to be invested in not just, I raised my kids here, so I really want to be invested in the city's future. That's why I'm participating.
Thanks, Commissioner Yang, and to all reviewing staff too.
Yeah, but could we grab MA off the
Oh, yeah, sorry,
online
May.
first?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Eme Okotie Oyakan. I use she, they pronouns. I was one of the community engagement facilitators for the Urban Growth Strategies project. And I have a professional background, educational background in biology and urban planning from the University of Oregon. And but what motivates me to engage in city projects, I think, is a combination of grief and hope. A lot of grief and frustration because of the barriers to opportunity and quality of life that stems from unjust and biased and unsustainable city planning and policy decisions. But also the hope that I've seen and experienced, just seeing the healing and uplift and community building that happens when more people have a say in shaping their communities in their own image. And so yeah, excited and really honored to be to have worked with this group of really great individuals. Thank you
For joining in May. And did we have another consultant that you said that joined?
Julie?
I worked with the May and provided a lot of organizational and logistical support for the panel, and just feel honored to have had such a great experience.
Thanks for being here tonight. Leah?
I probably should be up there. Thought I was gonna get out. Hi, everyone. Leah Roush. I am a senior planner on the team and was helped to support the community advisory panel experience, mostly with the elements of the housing planning work and housing actions that they helped to inform. I actually really resonated with what Commissioner Edwards shared, that being in a community the size of Eugene, really feeling like you can be a part of the decisions that are being made and understand them and know who is influencing them, I think was something that attracted me to Eugene and motivates me to be involved in community projects, community process, so including at the city. So excited to be here.
Thanks for being here. Stuart?
Hi everyone, Stuart Warren. I'm an associate planner on the community planning and design team. I worked mostly as the comprehensive plan kind of liaison with this group. And I will correct something that Julie said. She also helped to advise staff a lot. I can't undersell how important that is with our relationship with both May and Julie, is how much they advised us on project content, facilitation, meeting dynamics, the whole 9 yards. It's crucial. What really gets me excited about engaging in the city process is community. I think from a very young age, I've been taught that being involved in your community is important. And so that's what brings me here. And I've had a long history outside of a city, as a city planner, of being involved with the community. And this is just a great way to continue that work.
Awesome. Crystal?
Oh, hello, I'm Crystal Fisher. I'm the senior program coordinator in planning. So I'm kind of doing a lot of the behind the scenes work to get agendas out and stuff like that. That's my role. And what motivates me to get engaged in city processes? Well, this has been my home. I'm born and raised here, graduated at Sheldon and everything. So, I want home to feel like home to everybody. So that's really what kind of motivates me. And I really shine on that back end. So, helping out with facilitating meetings on Zoom and stuff. That's where my role is. So thank you.
Thank you. I think Terry, the last one.
Sure. I'm Terry Harding. I'm the principal planner for the community planning and design team, coming into my 20th year with the city of Eugene. So I'm the grandma, I guess, for the planning team. I get a lot of fulfillment out of the work that I do. I've had the absolute pleasure of seeing us become so much more inclusive and equitable in our work. And so we're doing what we need to be doing, and we've come a long way, and yet we still have so far to go. One thing that motivates me to engage in city processes and to focus on equity in particular is that I raised a daughter with a hearing disability, and that I had zero experience with before raising her. And so in making spaces, meetings, processes accessible is a passion of mine, and I feel that really deeply.
Great, and then I guess are we going back to presentation now for a little bit?
Yeah, and now I get to talk some more. We have a pretty short presentation for you because we want to lay the foundation for what the panel talked about and then get right into people's perspectives. So as a reminder, Urban Growth Strategies has 4 phases: community engagement phase, which we're constantly doing, the policy development phase, the housing and jobs actions phase, and the land supply studies phase. We're going to take a deeper dive today into community engagement and discuss one way that our team is working with the community to better understand the needs and priorities for housing, jobs, and access to community assets. This is a simplified project timeline that is focused on the urban growth strategies components that were reviewed by the panel. So you may have seen a colorful bar chart with even more bars, and that includes all of the project components. These are the ones that the panel spent some time working on, and they included the comprehensive plan, housing and jobs actions, and our housing planning work, including fair housing issues. Next, thank you. The Urban Growth Strategies Community Engagement Plan was approved by this body, the Planning Commission, in February of 2024. The plan serves as a guide to engaging community members throughout the Urban Growth Strategies project, and it outlines the goals of our engagement, levels of involvement, and the principles that staff are committed to. It describes opportunities for people to engage in different phases of the project. It details how different individuals and organizations can effectively participate and stay informed, and it clarifies the city's commitment to equitable community engagement. And now I'm going to hand it off to Stuart.
Thank you, Terry. So I'm going to provide you with a really brief overview of the panel, what topics that they advise staff on, as well as some of our super duper high level key takeaways. And I want to just really emphasize that the takeaways I'm going to talk about tonight are summaries of summaries of summaries. All of the summaries from every single meeting is in your AIS tonight. So you can look through those, you can see detailed notes, you can see kind of the words from panel members' mouth without any sort of staff interpretation. So I want to start off with a quick photo, because obviously we did not invite all of our panel members here tonight. Well, we did invite everyone who was willing to come tonight, but only a few of them could come. So this is a picture of some of our panel members. Not everyone on the panel is pictured here. And you'll also notice that staff and Julie are pictured as well. The panel contained 13 different folks. They are all members of Black, Indigenous, Latino, Latina, Asian, Pacific Islander, and other communities of color. They represent a range of abilities and gender identities. Their lived experiences range from personal to professional, from housing insecure to homeowner, to high school student to retiree, and a range of different transportation users. We have folks who rely on bicycles, we have folks who rely on the bus, we have folks who rely on cars as well. So just a really awesome group of people. I mean, you couldn't describe them as more than a diverse group because they're diverse in so many different ways. Attachment B in your packet has more information about the panel guidelines, objectives, and the topics we covered with them. But in 8 meetings between March and November of 2025, the objectives of the panel were to establish a baseline understanding of the Urban Growth Strategies project, including barriers to housing and the breadth of topics to be covered in the comprehensive plan. To also employ an equity lens to advise staff on how projects and policies may benefit and burden members of underserved community groups. To connect with other community networks to expand the reach of the project and really expand that reach out into other underserved community groups. And lastly, to support ongoing communication between the panel and staff on proposals and upcoming decisions by the City of Eugene Planning Commission and City Council. And I think them being here tonight is a prime example of how they're still engaging in this project. The panel heard a wide variety of topics related to the Urban Growth Strategies project. We started off with a group orientation overview of the project and discussed our group guidelines. Then we grounded the group in some historic discrimination in housing and land use. Next, over 2 meetings, we discussed the comprehensive plan and the breadths of topics that are covered there, including community engagement, compact development, housing, and community health. We then talked about fair housing issues, housing actions, and ended up with a wrap up and an opportunity for panel members to provide us feedback on their panel experience. So here are our summary of a key takeaway situation. I encourage you all to ask the panel members more on some of these if you'd like. The first panel or the first key takeaway I want to cover with you is that home is more than a physical space. Panel members emphasize that it's a place that they can feel and be safe, and where someone lives impacts their ability to access goods and services. The panel emphasized the importance of a housing supply that meets the diverse needs of the community, including cost, location, and accessibility. The panel also supported the work the city is doing to better understand the history of discriminatory policies and practices in housing, land use, and dispossession of land. And they advise staff to learn from the past to ensure that similar harms are not inflicted in the future. The panel discussed the importance of city building relationships and trust with members of underserved communities. And lastly, the panel appreciated the city's efforts to plan for better access to goods and services through our centers work. The panel expressed that centers could be a great opportunity for neighborhood identity formation, and centers should consider cultural considerations as well. This is my last slide. So in our final meeting, we asked the panel members to provide us some feedback on their panel experience, and we also gave them a survey, a digital survey they could take on their own time. And once again, another summary of a summary. There's a lot more information in your packet. In attachment D, it has the full summary of the survey. But in general, panelists felt that areas of success were recruitment of a panel composed of a diverse, welcoming, intelligent, and collaborative group of people. And I just really want to highlight that because I've been reflecting about that a lot today, and I really feel that way. We thoughtfully planned logistics, thanks to Julie and Ame, and supported panel members in feeling engaged and valued. The panel process balanced educating the panel while also hearing diverse perspectives and mindfully managing meeting time that was very limited. And we also learned that panelists thought it was so successful that they wished to remain engaged in the project, which is really a gold star in my mind. Areas for future improvement include they wanted more meeting time. Many of them expressed that they wanted to spend more time diving deeper into the weeds, somewhat like the Planning Commission does. The hybrid meeting format that we utilized needed improvement. I think we're always trying to improve these hybrid meeting formats. There could have been improved communications, including more succinct emails. And lastly, the panel asked for more varying meeting formats, locations, group discussion sizes, and ensuring that future meetings ensure balancing the voices of all participants. And with that, we're going to pause for clarifying questions about anything in our presentation. And if nothing, then we'll go straight into our group discussion, and then you can ask the panel members questions. And maybe vice versa.
Okay, well, it doesn't look like we have any initial questions here. Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah. Well, thank you all. I had a question about you talked about the recruitment process, and I'm very curious as to how, if anyone is willing to share, how did you find out about the opportunity? Or like, how did you hear about it? Did you hear from a friend or did you get an email? I'm just kind of curious.
Sure. At least for me, I was invited by the Department of Sustainability for an event that was happening at the library. I can't remember off the top of my head what event it was. But when I was there, Julie kind of noticed some of the comments that I was making and it really stood out to her. So she followed up with me after that to tell me about this initiative. So that's how I heard about it.
I can go after that. So Stuart and other city faculty or city staff have been very involved with the Youth Advisory Council, with the Eugene Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And from that opportunity, there were some discussions of maybe having a couple of council members be a part of the council, the advisory group. And so basically Stuart was the conduit through which I got involved on the advisory group. So thank you.
Thank you.
I got involved through Square One, and Julie came to Peace Village to do a presentation about.
Thank you, Emma.
I got involved originally through my professor at the University of Oregon. It was sort of like indirectly through this program. And he has a connection with Julie, and he recommended 3 students in our graduating class of 2023 to work with Julie to kind of like learn about this facilitation style. And so we helped organize the sustainability workshop that Timothy mentioned at the library. And then after that process, Julie asked if I wanted to continue participating in this work and join the panel.
And I got involved because I failed to find a college student for Julie. And Julie was very nice because she was like, "Hey, Carl, I could really use your help in finding a college student." And I do want to add, there's in addition to the challenge was that we were asked to be able to attend, I think it was all 8 sessions, is that right? And that can be challenging for some people, something to think about, but I have to say, it really enhanced the experience because everyone making that commitment. I just went back on what Stuart said, like, yeah, we all want to hang out with each other more, not just socially, but also to do more work. Yeah, so with my past participation in other civic committees and the fact that I heard such great things about what they were planning to do. And my hope was to try to represent not only what I felt I represent demographically, but also what my 25 plus years of working with college students, try to bring that to the table too.
Great. Well, great job, Julie. I think that's one of the challenges that we always hear about is that it's really hard to find the right mix of opportunity that works for a lot of people and time commitment and everything. So well done.
Also, just a couple of notes. We've got 5 questions that staff have prepared to kind of give us a jumping off point. And I think with 5 panelists, there's probably enough time to get a reply from everyone on each of those questions, but don't feel that you have to if you don't have something to contribute to that. And then planning commissioners, we're here to kind of listen and learn a little bit, but also to ask questions and dive a little deeper. So if you've got a follow-up question after somebody speaks, that's probably a good time to raise your hand and jump in. And then if you want to ask questions, then maybe we'll make an opportunity after we've clicked through some of these for additional questions. The first question that we've got on the list is, what's one thing that stands out to you from your experience on the panel? There are some examples like facilitators, relationships, and meals. And maybe Timothy, if you want to start again.
Yeah, definitely. Which one thing that stood out to me, was just kind of being able to work on the comprehensive plan because since it is such a big document, and that kind of ties into us wanting more meeting time because it's such a big document. I felt like we barely got to skim the surface of it, and I would have really liked to be able to get into the weeds, but even just skimming the surface, I think it was a really amazing opportunity to be able to give feedback on the various chapters and to kind of see those revisions, really be heard and reflected as some of the changes that they made. It wasn't like they just invited us just to say we're doing community engagement check, but I really felt like they were taking our experiences, stories, and feedback into heart and was trying to incorporate that. So I found that meaningful and something that stood out to me.
That's great. And I'll just kind of look around and try to keep an eye for Commissioner Billing. And if you again want to make a comment from one of the planning commissioners or ask a follow-up, feel free to throw your hand into the mix. And Gaush?
Yeah, well, one thing that stood out to me was something that, some typically would be considered like mundane, but rather a breadth of various people and lived experiences are engaging with it on a high level and having these really deep, meaningful, impactful conversations with each other and bouncing ideas off of each other to, really break it apart and be involved. So that's something that, I don't know, being in a high school like setting most of the time, I don't really see most of my classmates be engaged and involved that way. And, being surrounded by other people like that was really, really impactful and, shaping my own thinking as well.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Experience. There was a lot of active listening feedback.
Great.
I think one thing, the relationships that we made were just really really special. And Eugene's such a small town that now every time I go out into the community, I feel like I see some people, like we've run into each other before, and then I've gone to Gauch's parents' restaurant many times, and so just making those kinds of connections, I think is something that will keep this work going on further into the future. And then one just sort of like smaller logistical thing was that there were lots of ways to contribute your ideas in the meeting. So there was a worksheet that we had every meeting that sort of felt a little bit like school, but it also was like really comforting that like I had this little square where I can print my ideas. And if I was feeling kind of shy that day, I knew I could still like turn in a piece of writing to have my thoughts incorporated.
One thing that stood out for me was that I thought the facilitators did a great job of making the deliberate choice to make sure that we were all on the same level in terms of how much background information we needed going in, because they didn't make the assumption that we just all knew all the same stuff about housing, transportation, neighborhood planning. Some of us have more experience than others, and some of us have just more lived experience than others. And so just having that, making sure sometimes I will admit, I don't think I expressed this of it's like, okay, I've heard this before, but I recognize we had to go through it together to get to that level so that we could have that discussion with each other. Otherwise, one or more people will get left behind and we can't really have that true discussion on the same plane.
One of the things that Planning Commission folks talk about a lot is getting more representation and getting more out into the communities so we can understand what these viewpoints are from folks that have difficulty expressing them and participating in the process. So really heartening to hear what a positive experience everybody had. It was like a summer camp or something like that.
A retreat.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is that the group was very accepting. Like I usually stand in meetings because the narcolepsy makes me really tired of it sit. So I'm going to actually choose to stand because that was one thing that the group was very accommodating. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, well, let's maybe go on to our next question, unless any planning commissioners have a comment. Commissioner Mason, did you have something? No. Okay, go home for now. So the next question, and we can go around again and we got plenty of time to maybe get everybody's take on this. So in your opinion, how can the city improve future advisory panels? And some examples here, maybe dive deeper into content, formatting, or communications. Maybe Carl can start this time with this end and move back around.
The thing that stands out in my mind, and it's the hardest thing, when I was serving on the Lane Transit District Board, that was a board that was made up of mostly non-writers. And that's just because of the way these people are appointed. I was more of a writer before, but my primary transportation is usually a bicycle or car, which is valuable in that sense. But the point I'm trying to make is that how it relates to this is that sometimes the people I think that are the most valuable that the planning commission and others are trying to reach are going to be the ones that are the most difficult to access. And so this is the word, I think what you're doing is in the right step in the right direction. But that's always going to be a challenge, and just how do you get to those people who can't make all 8 meetings or have bad Wi-Fi or just for other reasons they just cannot have adult child care issues. I don't have an answer. That's just my feedback on that one.
Eva?
I think that the city did a really great job with this advisory panel. And I think going forward, I know that there are a lot of other types of panels that the city works on, and I'm not as familiar with those. But I know that's something that made this panel in particular really accessible for this group of people was that it was compensated. And I think that really plays a huge role in terms of when and who can show up to these kinds of meetings. And so I think particularly if you're hoping to attract a diverse group of people, whether that's BIPOC community or like renters, or just lower income people in the city. We know that there's a lot of low income people who live here. I think just making sure that those extra resources are available is just really crucial to make sure that people with different abilities and different levels of income can participate, and just being compensated for your time. I think it allows us to show up and kind of like ready to engage, and then also really makes it feel like our time is being valued and that our perspectives are being valued, and I think that really goes a long way.
And maybe before we jump to this side of the table, if Amay or Julie have any comments on the last question or this one, please feel free to share.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think something that I've brought up with staff a few times is I'd love to see more embodied engagement. A lot of our time was spent, in the library or in the Campbell Community Center, but kind of in a traditional meeting setting. And I think particularly for this project, there was a lot of opportunities to get out to see this particular sites that we were talking about, to just have a more hands-on and practical way of engaging with the things that we're learning. So I think that could have just added a little more fun, made it more engaging. So that's something that stood out to me, and that could be cool to see in future projects, future panels.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Julie? Okay, on this one. Meg?
I like that suggestion.
Yes.
That was just made. You were making a comment about some of the writers that you wanted, on the transportation board. If they cannot participate because they have limited means to write, maybe we can take the meeting to them or go on field trips together. Or take the advisory panel to Micro Village, one of the model or model ones, to check out what that means and what's the impact. I think that could be really fun.
Great.
I would echo that what Carl had said about getting the populations that are going to be most impacted or most taking of the services, and moving the population that are in the panels to that direction. Like, I think there's going to be more people needing affordable housing and more people who are going to be getting older and living longer lives. So getting that kind of population more into the future advisory panels, I think would be very beneficial. People who don't take bus, I mean, people who take buses, don't have individual cars and stuff like that, so.
I think, well, naturally, whenever it comes to councils or groups that are voluntary or self-selected, you have people who are very passionate and vocal about what they believe in, which is amazing. But sometimes that can create a sort of imbalance in, speaking time, or who holds, like who talks more, right? And maybe it was a bit daunting for me the first couple of meetings, but I had like a bit of trouble, speaking up a bit, especially towards the beginning. But I think, as the meetings went on, I, was able to find my footing and my place along on the council as well. So, I mean, I'm not sure how you would, really go about combating that, especially as like a facilitator as a city, but maybe laying some groundwork about, I don't know, sharing airtime or something of the sort.
And that's definitely something that I'm sure all the planning commissioners will say is true when you join this as well. And they come in and there's so much information and you got people that are so knowledgeable. It can be a little bit daunting trying to even participate, but being on these commissions and committees is such a good way to learn about it too. And I think that's underplayed sometimes, that it's as much an educational experience for the people that are doing it as they're sharing their view. They're learning about the process and learning from staff and understanding kind of more about how the city works.
And then for me, it's kind of building off of what I was saying, but I think kind of field trip opportunities, especially around urban planning. I think it would have been great to kind of talk about like some of the city centers that we're talking about, and with the urban growth boundaries, like going to each of the different ones and like actually talking about like what works well in each one, what doesn't work well, and what some of these proposed changes we're talking about in the future, what challenges we'll see, but like actually being there, I feel like could provide some context that you just can't with a presentation in the room. And then, yeah, especially getting out to like Highway 99 out in the Bethel area, and to kind of really highlight the contrast of where there's city infrastructure and support and where it may be lacking. Because, yeah, we talk about it and look at it in the maps, but I think actually physically being there can kind of really help facilitate those discussions, especially if people haven't been to those areas or not as familiar with them.
Okay, seeing nothing from planning commissioners yet, we're gonna move on to do you want to jump in there?
I just want, where you want questions?
Well, if you got anything that you want to follow up on, we're trying to keep it kind of free flowing, feel free to jump in.
I'm just wondering if there's any perspectives or communities that you felt were missing from the panel that we can build on for next time. I mean, we obviously had a very diverse panel to begin with, but if there's a community or experience you think that was missing from the panel, what are your thoughts?
Mobility disabled people, I think we're kind of lacking, and not, other disabled groups. We had like myself as the one identified disabled person, I think.
I don't know if do we have anyone above age 70?
One person, and I thought he was younger. Great.
Right.
Because I did have mentioned that one. Like our older population representation,
Yeah.
then he's like, well, me.
He had the most energy out of anyone.
He's gonna feel fantastic if he's watching this right now.
But still, I agree more, older populations as well.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of dovetails perfectly into the next question, and I know we've covered this on some angles, but a little bit more directly. How might the city encourage people with diverse experiences and backgrounds to participate in planning projects in the future? I know some of you have kind of spoken to this a little bit, but if you want to do any more follow-up or have other specific ideas, feel free to share them.
Okay, yeah, kind of building off your comment as well. Some of the communities that are missing with just people that may speak English as a second language, whether they're primarily a Spanish speaker, indigenous language speaker, or the many different languages spoken here in Eugene. So I think being able to provide interpretation for people that know English as a second language to be able to participate a little bit more. And then the second thing about encouraging people with diverse experiences, most of our meetings were around the downtown location, whether it was at the library, community center, or here in this building. But I think potentially getting out to other areas, and maybe providing transportation support, could help kind of like with Bethel and Santa Clara or West Eugene. I think people living out there, especially if they're transportation challenged, would have a hard time getting to downtown. So I think just sometimes, yeah, more diverse locations to host meetings.
Is that a viable option for these types of things, just the staff to provide transportation support? I bet that's a big barrier.
Well, we can ask Carl to talk to his LTD contact. Ride a bus. That has happened in the past.
Yeah.
LTD has donated a bus and a driver for, special events.
Seems like that would be one of the biggest
The
challenges.
city has vehicles too, so,
Yeah.
we have minivans.
We're offering Eva mentioned the panelists were compensated. We could also do compensation for transportation costs. If you had to take an Uber or something from where you live to the location, we could build that into a budget in the same way, or bus passes or whatever.
Was there a hybrid participation as well?
Say that again.
Was there hybrid participation as well? I
Yes.
know it's you get so much more done in an in-person meeting that it's really nice to get people together when it's possible.
And Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we offered transportation support to this panel as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You've got a point. I'm curious, we have a person that works full-time on our staff that is a childcare strategist. So all she does is work on trying to improve the landscape for people in their childcare needs. And I'm curious if that was something that came up as a barrier, and if there was anything, did you have folks that participated that, or would have participated, if not for issues with childcare? Just curious about that. If anyone
It
knows.
came up in recruitment.
Yeah, we had that in the budget, and the group of folks, we did have one person that, yeah, we just didn't have that demographic.
Okay.
I think it's a time constraint.
Yep.
Families.
Yep.
It's the hardest.
Yep, young kids. Well, that's helpful.
Did anyone else have a comment?
I would say recruitment at affordable housing projects and stuff like that would be getting a diverse group of people within that population. And, if you wanted a tour at Peace Village or borrowing a room at Peace Village, that could be done. A meeting at Peace Village.
The staff recruit Cornerstone or through organizations like that.
I want to go to May next. We definitely relied on MA and Julie's networks and previous events that they had put on. So we did a listening session at Peace Village before this panel started that I think Ming participated in. And so that examples like that are great opportunities. Same with the Youth Advisory Council and the sustainability event. Having those one-time events as opportunities to broaden those networks and meet people and recruit them into kind of longer term engagements like this one, I think is a great strategy. And certainly we communicate with kind of housing professionals, developers, affordable housing folks more broadly through this project. And so have some of those connections we could tap into.
May, did you want to share something?
Yeah, thanks. I think something that I heard throughout the panel was kind of maybe a mistrust. Like, how do we know that our voices, our perspectives are actually going into making change in the community? And so I think one interesting way that I've seen, a planning department engage is through kind of more on the lines of this embodied engagement, but through tactical urbanism projects. If there's a way that we can get panelists or community members involved in something more practical, more short term, able to be executed on a lower budget, lower cost, and it's a very community led thing, they could actually see the perceivable difference that they're making in their community. And so just an example of ways that could bring people along when there might be a bit of distrust or a reticence to engage because they're not sure that it'll actually make a difference.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to add a comment about the budget. As you might imagine, we needed to make sure that this process was funded to be able to do the things that we wanted to do with it. And so part of the funding, most of the funding, everything except the staff time was funded through a grant from Department of Land Conservation and Development. And so we wrote that grant with the express purpose of forming this panel, compensating the panelists, budgeting for the recruitment and the activities that were to be done. And I can't stress enough how important it is to do that on the front end and to make sure that we budget for a successful process. I think it paid off for this process really beautifully. And I think it can be vulnerable in the city budget process to do things that some folks might perceive as extra or not. Just extra when they're really not. They're really quite central to the goals of the housing planning that we're doing and the comprehensive planning that we're doing.
I was gonna piggyback off of Meg, but since Terry brought up this other thing about compensation, I wanted to add, I've had a lot of experience with compensating people for their time at the community college for students trying to participate. And the one thing I found in this is kind of interesting is that there is a sweet spot, and I don't know what that sweet spot is here, so I would encourage the facilitators to try to experiment and figure that out, which is that you want enough compensation so that they could participate if they otherwise couldn't, but you don't want to make it so highly compensated that then you attract people who would not actually participate in the way that you would want them to in a more genuine kind of way that's going to be useful for actual information that you could actually utilize. And I'm not saying that I don't want to overstate that because people have all sorts of reasons about why they want to participate. So I want to throw that out there. The other thing too, that in terms of feeling like you belong and part that your participation is valued. I think other people have mentioned that the facilitators did a really good job of doing that. And I just want to emphasize, like my parents are immigrants, and I think there was, and with the time they immigrated, I think just in general, there were a lot of places they've never been civically involved. That was not taught to me. I learned that from outside the family, and I think. And I know I've been to committees where I feel like I've been very welcomed and like I feel like, this is a good place for me. And I've been in other places where that has not been the case. And that wasn't the case here. I was thinking like my family is also one of the group areas that I don't feel welcome in. That's a separate issue. But so I think that's important too. And I think the fact that they're able to do this, and I think this could be a really good template for other panels and committees throughout the city.
If I can add one thing on that, I just don't want to undersell the importance of having both Julie and Amay help us through this process, right? Their connections, their attention to detail, their knowledge of different cultural considerations was so paramount to us, creating an environment, I think, where folks felt comfortable participating. And then not to undersell the actual panelists showing up, right? Because that's really how this whole process has to work, is they need to show up so they can build those relationships, so they can have the trust with each other to be willing to debate like hot topic items or be willing to open up about experiences in their lives. And I think this panel is what made this panel so successful. We tried and we can do what we can do on our ends of things, but without them being there and being willing, you really don't have a successful engagement in that.
And then if Julie or Ava or Josh wanted to comment on that last question.
I do badge.
Take a second. Okay, and then let's go ahead with Josh and then Commissioner Bailey. I'll get to you.
Well, I think most of our meetings were in the evenings, if not all of them, 5:30 to 7:30 or so. And I think one of the big factors was having a meal. It may sound like a little thing, but I can't underscore it enough how important having a meal is to be able to, fully be present and, be able to present ourselves to the best of our abilities.
Great, that's definitely a good practical one. Commissioner Bailiff?
Could you possibly remove the document from the screen so that we can see the people? Because right now the people are this tiny, tiny, tiny little box on my.
That's the size.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I also wanted to reiterate the food, it's just after coming in from a long day of work, be like, I know I'm gonna have a meal tonight. I'm so excited. And sometimes that's Indian food from Evergreen and I'm so excited. The one idea I wanted to mention about just other planning projects in general, is I just thought it was really wonderful that there were 2 high school students on the panel. And, policy and city planning is something that I think a lot of people learn about later in life. I felt really lucky to have learned about city planning just from being curious about my city that I grew up in. And kind of to May's point about tangible and seeing tangible change. I think that working with students and working with either college students or high school students or even middle school students could be a really great way of building trust with younger people. And I think that could happen in so many different ways. I think after school programs or summer camps are programs that I've worked in a lot. I've done a lot of youth development work, and they're always looking for ways to engage with the community with new activities to do. They're the YMCA. I used to work for the YMCA in the after school program. The after school directors are constantly looking for activities, things to do, and so designing a playground or designing drawing your perfect neighborhood or something like that is a really really beautiful way to connect with young people. I think particularly with this content, it can sort of feel like it's just looking at long documents and things like that. But at the end of the day, it really is your built environment, and that has a really exciting aspect to it. And so I think that would be a really cool way of kind of bringing these conversations into the community, particularly with young people.
We're doing pretty good on time. We're about a little over 20 minutes left, probably before wrapping the meeting up, if we want to be out by 7. So if any planning commissioners want to add or comment or follow up, feel free to do so at any time. Commissioner Yang?
With all the wonderful work that the panel has done, I wonder what's the process next that we can showcase, highlight some of these experiences, the takeaway lessons, and also almost serve as a dashboard of our progress, so that each time when we continue this project, we don't start from scratch all over again, but build on that. And the other thing is that I think a lot of what I've heard from the presentation is that it's not just limited to, sort of historic truth-telling, storytelling. And then we're trying to do something a bit more tangible, and how do we show that impact, the feedback actually led to this change, or we're on track for that. How do we do that?
Those are excellent questions. And I don't know if I have excellent answers yet, but I think that's exactly what we are charged with doing, is surfacing to you all directly what the panelists shared with us. As Stuart said, we can share what we hear, but it ends up being these kind of high level key takeaways. A lot of community engagement is informing staff and then informing the proposals that we bring back to you. So opportunities like this, opportunities like having the Youth Advisory Council members come and speak to you all directly, I think are great ways to kind of take us out of the middle and give them the opportunity to speak to you directly. And so I hope we can do that with some of our time remaining, hear some of their kind of key takeaways from the experience related to the content that they talked about. To your point around not asking the same questions and kind of learning from what we got out of this experience, I think that is certainly a best practice in engagement, and something that the new state rules are actually recognizing, that just because, you know, this project touches housing and that project over there touched housing and that project over there touched housing. We don't have to ask all the same questions over and over again, but learn from all of those things across the organization. So we're able to actually summarize and take, you know, the last 5 years of engagement that was relevant and pull that all into our urban growth strategies work and housing planning work. So there are certainly opportunities to do that. And I think we need to continue to do more of it and get better at it and make a better, more coherent feedback loop with folks who engage and share with them how they directly influence the proposals that come to you all. We'll keep working on it, but encourage you all to keep asking those questions of us when we come to you with policy proposals of like, how did the community influence this?
The other thing I was thinking about is that if there's a that these information or the work that's been done live. We talk about building trust, improve or even expand our recruitment. You know, what are the people who may not self-select to be on the panel that we can reach out to? I think that if there's a place that these informations live or this effort live, it would help them to like see what's been done and become, you know, inspired to participate.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll say all of our engagement summaries that we write get posted on our website. They're public information. They will live on forever and ever. And I know that we constantly go back to them. I know I can't speak for Leah, but I'm constantly going back to our engagement summaries as I'm working on comprehensive plan goals and policies and just double checking to make sure that what I think I heard, I actually heard, and I'm trying to include it when appropriate to the best of my ability. But I think it's the hardest thing that we do is trying to connect those two dots, right? Between what like Gauch said about whatever it is, and then how it impacted the outcomes. Because there's so many steps between those two places. And then once we draft the goal or policy, then it comes to you all, and then it goes to the city council for decision, right? So there's all these different steps along the way that could change or alter the way that we had originally written it based off of what Gauch had told us. So just a point of consideration for you all, I think.
Yeah, is there a more question for staff? Is there something that the planning commission does in terms of its processes that's been changed through your lens by the experience that you've had through this feedback? Is there something that we could be doing in the future? Because we are the citizens, you know, we're the front-facing civic engagement committee. So given the feedback that you've seen, the experiences you've had, is there a process that we are not doing that we should be changing to or altering going forward to better align with what you're hearing?
Good question. I don't know, Terry.
Thanks. One thing that comes to mind is the connection to Youth Advisory Council and youth in general. We've talked about this commission and potentially creating a seat for a youth commissioner. And what that would look like, we're not sure, but it's kind of an idea that some cities have implemented. So that could look like participation in non-land use meetings. You're welcome. Or we're not really sure what it would look like, but I think there are opportunities to involve, and Stuart has worked most closely with the Youth Advisory Council, so could speak to that. That's one example, I think, of something that has surfaced and we're thinking about.
I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I also wanted to second that idea. In a different, project, I was a part of this like day-long meeting, and all these different breakout groups talking about this like complicated natural resource policy about offshore wind. And there was a group of high school students from the local coastal town who came, and everyone was going around sharing after, I don't know, an hour of meeting together, how are we going to solve this complicated problem? And of course, the high school students came up with like the most comprehensive A to B to C plan, and everyone was just like floored and like how clear their comprehension of the problem was, and then their solutions. And so I think just having that sort of like cross-generational work just helps so much, but also with like bringing everyone to the same level of comprehension, and using different language, or like, easier to understand terminology. Anyway, but then I had another thought about Commissioner Yang, what you were mentioning about how do we continue this work. I think I have a couple of thoughts on that. One, just kind of going back to the idea of relationships, and like now that we have all met and connected, like hopefully, if we run into each other again in the future, we maybe will have a casual conversation. What are you all talking about on the planning commission next week? And so just kind of making longer connections, inviting panel members or members from other groups to these kinds of meetings, like, hey, I know we're going to have this big decision coming up, and it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that. And I think something that I thought about as a panel member was like thinking about these questions about what do I want my community to look like, how far do I have to walk to get to the grocery store, like those kinds of things. I start thinking about it more as like someone living, and so I think kind of what I'm interested in is like bringing those discussions into everyday life, and one way that happens more naturally is through like stories and storytelling. And so if there's an opportunity to hear from a community member of like how this living in a certain apartment style like impacts their life, I feel like just like recalling a story like that could be just a great way of maintaining that connection to the work that we already did here. I think just remembering stories is just a good way of kind of continuing that. And then the one thing I wanted to respond to, you mentioned about like, what if we just like start all over again, in 10 years or something like that? I don't necessarily think that's a problem. I think like with the final product being this long range plan, we will naturally be asking the same questions about our community in 10, 20 years. And I think that the conversation we'll be having will be in a different context then. So I wouldn't, from my perspective, I wouldn't like worry so much about kind of doing that again.
Ava, they mentioned takeaways, and I think that's great. Next question is something we're all really interested to hear. So maybe we'll loop around one more time and ask, what's a takeaway that's sitting with you from one of the meetings, and some examples are community spaces or housing needs or cultural considerations. So if you had one or two items that really resonated with you, do you want to talk a little bit about them?
One thing that definitely resonated with me a lot that I learned from just the people on the panel, and I mean how you kind of brought up disability issues and how we're oftentimes not planning with disability in mind. And I just like learned a lot about the context of it, even about the federal building and some of the challenges. Was it the federal building with the elevator, or there was something?
Yes.
Marcy was talking about, you and Marcy. I can't remember the specifics, but just kind of like learning all the different codes and challenges to plan more around the different ability and disability needs. Because there's such a big range of needs, and oftentimes I kind of felt that gets left out of the conversation. So it really helped me kind of just frame all my discussions on kind of with that mindset, because I'm able-bodied and I sometimes tend to overlook those things quite a bit. So that's a big gap in my planning and how I think of things. So just kind of being part of this panel and being able to hear those experiences and those considerations was really impactful for me.
Yeah, it's stimulating. Gotcha.
One thing that came up often, and that I heard a lot from other council members, was the importance of third spaces and public spaces, either that be like the library or other multicultural centers, or shared spaces, either that be a gym or a place where you can hang out with other people in your apartment complex, right? It was this importance of being like having that area to express yourself, but also have that community, right? I don't know, coming into the council group, I didn't really think about it that much, but hearing it from my fellow council members, I was pretty eye-opening to hear about that.
Thank you.
I think I was hearing during one of the meetings, or maybe a couple of meetings, about how there are conflicting regulations and rules on like how far a parking lot could be from the curb and how much green space needed to be and where the people were architects were putting green space that was not necessarily the best placement, but it fit the requirement.
Yeah, we talked about the multi-unit design standards in one meeting, which are a really complicated part of our code, and I will say they're definitely the most technical thing that we brought to the group, and I was so impressed by people's willingness to like jump in and learn about setbacks and open space requirements, and I think what you're referring to, me, you should correct me, is how we sometimes apply those differently in like a dense urban area versus in a outside of that. And then how developers can get adjustments to some of those standards. And so we were talking through which of those things, when you're weighing added costs to a development and then outcomes for either the resident or the community, and like that weighing process that happens in all of the work that we bring to you all was one of those topics. Yeah.
I think it was also like, I was thinking of like East Village, where they have a large fire lane and residents keep putting stuff in the fire lane because they see this empty space, but it needs to be a fire lane. And, then other spaces are kind of compacted and things like that, so. Yeah.
It's really hard to just pick one thing because it's always spiraling up there. But I think the meeting when we talked about the neighborhood centers really stuck with me because I think it's really important for every neighborhood to really have a culture and for people to feel a sense of place and identity in whichever neighborhood you're living in. And I think it can be really harmful to cities for like certain neighborhoods to just have a different, a more extravagant feeling. And I kind of felt that when I first came to Eugene. I've always coveted South Eugene and the South University neighborhood. And, I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford to live there, but I think it's really, really special to just foster a sense of identity in each neighborhood. And I think the idea of third spaces, like Gauch mentioned, or like a community center or neighborhood center is just one really great way of having a little taste of that because it brings people together and just provides a safe place for people to be.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, so we had this great activity that we did. We had different shapes that represented like great green spaces, water spaces, and different kinds of like housing, like dense or single family homes. And now the facility can correct me if I messed up on what the takeaway of that was. Here's my takeaway, which my colleagues should definitely chime in on this, which was less about like designing like like you're playing a video game and like design the perfect city, but more about like what's possible. Like, what would you like to see in your neighborhood? What kind of things would you want planning to be able to make possible? And then piggyback what Eva said, I think we would all want access to these things, and the importance of having the ability for people of all incomes and socioeconomic backgrounds to be able to access. So not all the water stuff is in one neighborhood or all the parks are in one area. And I just want to tout this just because I think it's just so important, especially as our climate keeps changing. Having green spaces are interconnected so that people can travel from neighborhood to neighborhood to do their tasks with green spaces so that they don't have to drive to a green space or even have to travel from one neighborhood to another without the coverage of green space. That's it. Thanks.
May or Julia, do you want to share anything in terms of takeaways?
Sure. Does Julie want to go first? Do you have anything, Julie? No. Yeah, just quickly, I think kind of going back to the meeting that Ming brought up about the multi-unit design standards, and we were talking about setbacks, and I think we were really like understanding setbacks and making decisions about them based on cars, whether we were setting back to create greater distance from the street, or we were afraid that that space was going to be then taken up by parking or other car related uses. And so it just kind of stood out to me that, we really don't allow, a car dominated culture to continue to like arrest us, not only conceptually, but, physically, and that it can cut short our lives. Recently, a community member was cycling and was killed just yesterday on Patterson Street. They were a Kenyan international student at the University of Oregon. And he and I were, the same age. And so just it really stood out to me that we need to continue to imagine differently, imagine beyond a car-centric built environment, and really be taking actionable, steps and building that for us. Built environments that center safety and health for everyone, or else it'll just continue to cost our most vulnerable members. So that is just kind of front of mind for me.
Well, yeah, I'd love to make more time for planning commissioners to ask questions and make comments, but we do have one question left. I think this is a rare opportunity for us to listen instead of talk during the meeting. Did you have something you want to share?
What I do?
cool.
I do. I know. I want to thank all of you. As I worked through the material the last couple of days, it emerged here, became clear that kind of the quality of work that had been done here, and the way that it's organized, the way I liked as you went through the meeting summaries and seeing kind of the takeaways people had, some of the thoughts. There was a lot in there, and I as Stuart said, I'm looking to going back into it. A lot of stuff there that kind of informs my thinking or can inform our thinking, and I think it will be very helpful in the process going forward. Part of the reason for that, or maybe a big part of it, is everybody who's here. I mean, you had the staff design this thing and figure out how to get it going with the help of the facilitators, figuring out how to get it implemented, and then populating the group as you did, and having it all through your process and over the meetings, getting everyone working together to kind of produce this really quality, informative piece of work. I have one other thing quickly. I keep hearing, I thought about this today while I was kind of going through it, and I keep hearing things like, gosh, I wish we had more meeting time. And we want to do more work. And one of my favorites, of course, is we want to go into the weeds. One of my favorite terms. I guess I would, I don't really know any of you. I've heard you talk. I've looked at the product of your work, but the council's recruiting for boards and commissions right now, and they are through the end of the week. And I guess I would encourage you, to the extent you're interested in all of those things that I just said or that you've said, you could apply for the planning commission. There's a lot of opportunity to do work, to get into a lot of material, to go into the weeds, to have some impact and share what you've learned here and be part of work in the community. So I'll leave it at that, but I really appreciate everything that you've done here. This is really good work.
Thanks, Commissioner Beeson. So we probably have enough time maybe to get a few responses to the last question. If anyone wants to share, what would you like the planning commission to consider in upcoming UGS work? And that's definitely, I think we've got a lot of takeaways here for us to consider, but if there's anything else that you think you'd like to add or emphasize, please feel free to contribute.
You're early.
Deep in thought.
Well, okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know that the racial equity atlas is supposed to inform some of your decisions making forward, but it's not really any particular policy or procedure on how that's done. So, but yeah, I just really hope that you all continue incorporating the racial equity atlas into your future work, because we all got to give feedback to it and be able to contribute to that as well, in addition to all this other work with the urban growth strategies. So that'd be my one comment for you all.
Great. Anything else anyone wants to share? We've got about 5 minutes left in the meeting, so definitely time for a couple more comments. We'll probably have a few things that we need to say to wrap up, and I want to get you all out of here at 7 o'clock like we promised. Anything else from planning commissioners to add on to tonight's meeting? It's been a really, really interesting session here tonight, and definitely hope we get more opportunities to do stuff like this. It's really cool to see what you all have been working on, and I'm really impressed with the staff. I gotta say, do you all sleep or?
No, several of us are out sick this week. I know you got the email from Alyssa, but I can mention your upcoming meetings if that would be helpful, because they're all devoted to urban growth strategies. So I know about those meetings. I'm not as familiar with your upcoming meetings on land use, but I don't think you have any scheduled. So your February 10, February 24, and March 10 meetings are all devoted to some urban growth strategies topics. Then we'll be giving council an update in April, and this is all building towards sending a big package of things to the state in May. And that kicks off our formal adoption process for the 2026 adoption package for urban growth strategies. So we're kind of running on several different fronts trying to get all of this work done. But this has been really excellent to hear from you all tonight. I really appreciate everyone's willingness to participate in a different kind of meeting. I too hope we can do it again. And I think that's it. Not even 7.
I think that constitutes our items from staff. Are there any other items or info to share from commissioners? Looks like we are all set. So thanks again to our panelists for all the work you did on this, and thanks for coming and sharing your experiences with us tonight. It's been a real eye-opening and enjoyable experience talking with everybody here. With that, thank you. The meeting of the Planning Commission is now adjourned.